Hi, I'm Rachel Ventura, State Senator, and today we're talking about the medicinal benefits of psilocybin and its designation by the FDA as a breakthrough therapy for mental health and PTSD. I'm here today with Jean Lacy, the founder of the Illinois Psychedelic Society, and Dr. Jeff Bache, who practices at a natural holistic healing center where patients suffering from depression, anxiety, PTSD, or trauma are treated with a psychedelic-assisted therapy approach that includes ketamine. Doctor, can you tell us about how psilocybin might be used in a healing center?
When there's intention on healing, when there's adequate preparation to navigate the experience with that substance, when somebody is there to support the person during their experience with the medication, which would happen in a clinic, and when somebody is there to help them process and make sense of that experience afterwards, we have much more profound potential for healing and personal growth than we might if we just left it up to chance.
So my understanding is that psilocybin silences the default mode network, allowing the brain to create new neural networks. Can you talk about the therapy process in using psilocybin?
Oftentimes, a psychedelic like psilocybin will be researched for one specific issue or condition, like depression or post-traumatic stress disorder or addiction. In my clinical experience, the vast majority of reasons that people seek mental health treatment involves a sense of stuckness, stuck with the same patterns of emotions or thoughts or relationships or behaviors. And so we're often looking to get them unstuck, and psychedelics seem particularly good at helping people temporarily get unstuck, fostering a sense of openness that in a facilitated setting with right intentions to work through one's problems can really accelerate that process where normally much of the work of therapy involves helping people get unstuck and to find ways to capture the insights that they get out of therapy.
The VA is currently looking at how psilocybin can help veterans with PTSD. Some of my colleagues who are supporting the bill are veterans. Let's hear from them.
Thank you, Senator. It's been an honor to work with you on this legislation. As you know, as a veteran, I'm very aware of many mental health issues, including post-traumatic stress in veterans that can be extremely resistant to traditional medical treatments, and that includes addictions and depression. In my own research, I've been very encouraged by what I've learned about psilocybin as an alternative treatment option. In fact, as I researched psilocybin, I'd been considering filing a bill for medicinal use over the past couple years, and to be able to work on this with you in a bipartisan manner was great. I'm appreciative how responsive you and your staff have been to suggestions that our caucus has presented during the subject matter hearing. And today, as a result of the collaboration, I'm comfortable that this legislation limits psilocybin use to medicinal only and not recreational, requires a referral of a healthcare professional who ideally has been working with the individual on their issues. Psilocybin will be put in a controlled and supervised environment, and through this legislation, retail sales of psilocybin would be excluded. The mental health challenges that our country and certainly many of our veterans are facing, they need this viable alternative. And this is a phenomenal option if we can get to a hearing and get a vote on this bill. Just disappointed maybe the governor didn't give us as much time to understand what we had worked on, but really look forward to working with you this summer if that's the path that this goes.
Jean, can you tell us about your story and how psilocybin has helped you in your life?
So I come to this issue because while pregnant with my youngest child, I spent about 5 months hospitalized with life-threatening blood clots. And in spite of multiple interventions, I still ultimately ended up with a blood clot that nearly took both of our lives during the childbirth process. So it was truly a living nightmare to have to go through. My husband went from being a union laborer to my full-time caregiver and the caregiver for our 3 children. While I struggled to recover physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, I had a constant fear of death and recurring clots that really loomed over me and drove me into a cycle of believing that my family would be better off without me. In spite of every treatment and kind of therapy that Western medicine had to throw at me those first few years postpartum, nothing really helped. My condition was treated mostly like simple postpartum depression and anxiety, and I was placed on cocktails of pharmaceutical drugs that really only made my condition worse. This mirrors findings of a 2023 report that includes a staggering statistic that suicide accounts for 39% of direct maternal deaths between 6 weeks and 12 months postpartum. So fortunately for me, due to enormous privilege, my story doesn't end with suicide. It took years before a compassionate doctor was willing to call my condition what it really was, which was complex PTSD. But that shift in perspective sent me to dive into the research that's going on, from Johns Hopkins, the University of Chicago, USONA Institute in Madison, Wisconsin, MAPS, and other organizations. Finding this research for the first time, I saw hope for myself before realizing that engaging in this kind of therapy was highly illegal in my home state. So in desperation, I took a risk to travel to where psilocybin was decriminalized to find healing without fear of criminal consequence. I engaged in a therapeutic process that was much like Dr. Bache described, that involved preparation and experience with the medicine, and then also integration afterwards. And even after a single session of this experience, I was able to break those patterns in my brain that kept me stuck in my traumatized state. And this happened to me because of the increased psychological flexibility produced by psychedelics. So I was able to continue to parent my children and really become the mother that I had always envisioned myself to be. So while my children were always thriving, now at 16, 14, and 10, they have an active, engaged mother to guide them through life, and I no longer rely on pharmaceutical interventions for my mental health.
I'd like to thank my guests for discussing the CURE Act, and we look forward to continuing the conversation about moving this legislation forward.